going on, people? I am here up early enough. Get on and crack an ass. I wanted to talk about this new, it's not really a new phenomenon for those of you that have been around in the 80s. The concept of civil forfeiture is not a new concept. During the big drug, like when drugs were going crazy in the 80s, and this is not like drugs like they're talking about now. Like they always talk about the drug war and stuff like that. I grew up in the 80s, so when I say like drugs were everywhere, drugs were everywhere. They were a big thing. I grew up in Southern California when the CIA was dropping off, making it easy for people to get cocaine, and cocaine was everywhere. So they came up with this policy. They call it civil forfeiture now. I'm not sure what it was called back then, but if you say you were a drug dealer, you got pulled over by the police, you happen to have drugs in your car, they can seize your car, they can seize like whatever money you have. They can pretty much strip you down naked, you know what I mean? They'll take anything of value that you have, you know, in 80s terms, they can take your pager, you know what I mean? If you had a cell phone, they can take that. They take all your valuables. Fast forward to current times, between the 80s and now, they started frowning upon the concept of civil forfeiture. So they've been, you know, a lot of the policies have gone away, but they're now making a comeback. And the big distinction between civil forfeiture of the 80s and modern civil forfeiture is that they don't have to find any drugs in your car anymore in order to take all your money or whatever you have with you. You can say, I was going to buy a car or something, I was going to put a large down payment, say I had $10,000 or something in my pocket. I was going to buy a car. I'd do something, you know, rolling stop or something like that. I'd get pulled over by the police. If I don't get searched or anything, it'll be fine. But in the event that something happens where they decide they want to search me, they find the $10,000, they're gonna start asking me questions. And this all depends on what state you're in too, but this is typically how it goes. They're gonna ask you, you know, why you have the money, how'd you get it. They're gonna start asking you all these questions. Now, you can't be quiet, because if you're quiet, this is sort of a catch-22, because you can't be quiet or talk in this case, because if you're quiet, they're gonna just seize the money. If you start talking, if they don't believe you, they're gonna seize the money. But it's up to their discretion. So they can come up with, they feel like seizing the money. It doesn't really matter what you tell them. They're gonna seize it. So that's where that is now. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is because Illinois just came up with they just have a law, and they've been passing out these card readers to police officers. You know, like I forgot what they call the actual machine, but it's pretty much a merchant credit card reader, like you would get, like if you go to the store and buy something, they swipe your card, you know, to make your transaction. Now, if the police officer suspects, now this is a real sketchy situation. They don't you don't have to be doing anything. They can take you. They can, at any point, if they decide to seize your wallet, and they take your wallet, they'll take your cards. You know what I mean? Swipe your cards, remove all they can confiscate all the money off your debit cards. You know what I mean? Things like that. And they tried to say they were doing it to combat identity theft. But my whole philosophy is this: if you suspect that the person isn't who they say they are, you know, the driver's license doesn't match up, you have an idea that there's maybe some identity theft going on, then definitely confiscate the cards, you know, until the identity of the person can be established. But collecting the cards and start extracting the money off of them isn't helping identity theft, it's actually causing identity theft. So instead of the thief stealing your money, the police are stealing your money now. Which is, I mean, this is crazy. What this country is coming to it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And they make these laws up, and the thing that people don't understand, that this is a violation of your constitutional rights, because they can't separate you. Your personal property can't be confiscated without a trial in court. So you have to go to court for them to determine whether or not your property needs to be confiscated. So what they're doing is circumventing the Constitution, and that's where we're at nowadays with that, and it's insane. They're giving police way too many rights. Like they can do almost anything without fear of prosecution. I mean, they already shoot people in the streets for most of the time. Well, I wouldn't say most of the time, but I'm just saying there's a lot of questionable situations. You know what I mean? You get into an argument with a police officer, sometimes you get shot. You know what I mean? Like dumb shit like that. You know what I mean? It's not an exchange of gunfire. It's not somebody shot at them, they shot back. It's mostly I thought I saw a gun and I shot the dude. You know, like, which is ridiculous. You shouldn't have to. If you think you saw a gun, that's not enough. You know what I mean? You should have to prove that you saw something in order to justify a shooting. But they don't have to do any of that. They're pretty much the Wild Wild West, and they give them these powers to confiscate money without trials. That's just ridiculous, because you're never gonna get just to let you know, if you get your money seized in one of these civil forfeitures, you're never gonna see that money again. That money is gone. You know what I mean? They'll make you jump through so many hoops to get that money back. By the time you finally get it back, they'll probably, I think some states even attach fees to it. So by the time you do get it back, the fees probably drained it out. Or, I mean, it's just they make it so that if they get the money, they're gonna keep the money. You know what I mean? So the best thing to do is avoid civil forfeiture at all costs. What I would recommend to anybody, if you're traveling with money, is to have a lockbox in your trunk. You know what I mean? But you got to treat it like a firearm. Treat your money like a firearm. You put it in your trunk, lock it up in a box. You know what I mean? That way they don't have no question. They can't get into something to steal anything. You know what I mean? You have to treat it's a shame. You gotta hide your money from thieves as well as the legal thieves. So that's all I had to say about that. I just wanted to bring that out, let people know what's going on what the move is, and I think they're trying to readopt that, because this all stems from the lack of tax dollars. So when they decide not to tax the rich, or they give rich people tax breaks or what have you, they start causing or lower the tax rate too low. It starts choking out services choking out services for the cities. Cities start getting choked out. They're not getting the proper funding for like their police force, or their fixing potholes in the street. And they're not getting what they need to actually make the city thrive. So at that point, they have to figure out how to come up with revenue, and this is just one of those things that they do. Besides just jacking up the price of tickets, like a parking ticket. Remember, a parking ticket used to be like $10-20, and you get a parking ticket nowadays, that parking ticket is like $50, and depending on where it's at, like if you're in San Francisco, they have parking tickets that can go up to like $200. They're ridiculous, and that's a wealthy city. You know what I mean? So if there's a lot of wealth in the city, I can't understand why there's no money for where they have to try to generate income through legal extortion, what I call it, or stuff like that. Man, it makes perfect sense, but it's not. I mean, it's not the right thing to do. If you can justify giving tax breaks at the expense of the normal citizen, you know what I mean? If you're rich, you need an extra $50,000 a year in tax cuts. You know what I mean? That's just greedy. You know what I mean? What are you gonna what are you gonna do with $1,050,000 or $1,500,000 that you can't do with $1 million? You know what I mean? If that's your problems, if those are your problems, and I mean you have some psychological problems. That's not most people wouldn't have an issue with that, but unfortunately that's the country we live in. And that's what they tailor to. So just everybody out there, keep your eyes out. Just a little tidbit, I'm gonna add this on to the end of the video, but remember, these things come from and I say this, and don't get turned off when I say this, but they're because I know there's probably a wide range of people that watch this, but they use black people to normalize their activity, mostly criminal activity that they do. They want to show that what they're doing is right. These people are wrong. They start demonizing people, but they use this particular section of society as to normalize their crooked activity. So once they put it in your mind that them doing this particular act, so like civil forfeitures, they used to show black people and stuff all the time back in the day, getting their stuff took or whatever it is. But once they normalize you seeing that particular activity take place, then they move it over to mainstream society. So where we should be at as a country and as citizens of this country is protect all people. Everybody. Don't when you see black people protesting something, don't automatically think Black Lives Matter. You should look at them and say, these are human beings. You shouldn't be treating human beings like this. This isn't or whatever they're protesting. Mostly it's police brutality or police killings or something like that. But whenever happens like that, you should definitely think humanitarian. Think like a humanitarian as a U.S. citizen. No U.S. citizen should be treated like this in any way, shape, or form. So once we start thinking like that as a collective, then we'll start seeing problems start being solved. When we fight amongst each other, we're all in the same boat here besides the elites. So once we get our shit together, there'll be things that start happening. You know what I'm saying? So with that, I like to say you guys have a good day, and I'm out.